Hello and welcome back to Warcraft Daily for today the 26th of February 2014, and we have a really stacked episode today, lots of cool interview stuff, and then a little bit about PvP Season 15. So first of all, we have, well, I think nearly all of this probably comes from Ian Hazzikostas, because they've just been wheeling that guy around the place, shoving interviews in his face, and the good news for us is that he said a lot of very cool things. Now, the first bit of Warlords of Draenor related information that we have is that there will be no, or at least they are currently planning to have no Valor or Justice in the expansion. Basically, the role of Valor originally was to offer compensation for bad luck. You would know that even if you didn't get a boss drop, well, you still had something to aim for, right? So currently they have bonus rolls, and these are already going a decent way to helping to counteract that. But what they are going to do is they're going to tweak the bonus roll system to prevent duplicate items, which I think will make it, or at least allow it to do its job far more effectively. Now let's just think about it. Say a boss has got 3 different items that you want, right? And I don't know, maybe you have a 10% or 15% chance of getting it from your coin. Well, 2 out of those 3 times it's going to be a duplicate item that you don't want. So really, in some cases, removing this duplicate item thing is going to increase the chance of you getting the bit of loot you want by like double, nearly, or you know, something similar to that, which should, in theory, very much make up for the fact that there is no Valor point system. And then, yeah, so that's very good. They also said that it removes a little bit of the grind and awkwardness of Valor, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Then for PvP, he said that they are looking at removing something, though they know that Conquest in its current implementation is very important for keeping the high-end PvP balanced. Basically, because there's a weekly cap, it means that the people who are the bleeding edge PvPers are all going to be roughly around the same item level, meaning that the high rankings are going to be relatively balanced. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if both Honor and Conquest were to stay in the expansion. Okay, so let's talk about Valor points. Right now in patch 5.4, they are basically useless apart from item upgrades, and then Justice points really haven't been as good as they have been in other expansions. They're a bit useless, really. So in Warlords of Draenor, well, okay, they're a bit useless unless you're like maybe getting gear for an old character or something. But anyway, in Warlords of Draenor, we're going to be able to get gear via heroic dungeons, the challenge mode daily quest, garrisons, world bosses, and then of course raids. That is a lot of sources of gear, and I think that overall, that in combination with the better bonus roll system should offset really this Valor point thing. Like, if you think about it, maybe you're getting a piece of Valor point gear every 2.5 weeks. Well, if you are doing 3 bonus rolls every week, and it's got this new system, then really, you shouldn't see much of a difference, just that it will be a less deterministic system. And it's probably worth saying that the Valor point system was very, very, very deterministic. You got X per week, and you would need to wait Y number of days to get the piece of loot that you wanted. Now sure, the gear was nice, and you did feel like you were working towards something, but I think there is a chance that this new Warlords system could be a better and less welfare epic style system. That is, of course, only if they balance things very well with drop rates. And I actually wonder if they are going to increase drop rates by a small amount, with more gear being shared between more classes because of this new system, and then of course the large variance from item to item within a tier due to additional stats that they could have, like, I don't know, tertiary stat or a socket or something like that. Well, perhaps they're going to increase the drop rate of some of these various things, because you are going to be wanting to upgrade your gear more and more and more, because you're not going to get that ideal, like, kind of perfect roll every time with the piece of gear that you get. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with drop rates, but I think that this can work out sort of well. Hopefully. They just need to be very careful. Now, in terms of Justice points, they've always been the catch-up tier, and I think that with Warlords, they are probably going to be adding in post like level 100 dungeons, so maybe patch 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 have got 1 or 2 dungeons in them. They will, of course, offer better gear, which is a little bit closer to the current raid tier, so perhaps they will sort of replace the need for Justice. The same with heroic scenarios, then perhaps gear that you get from garrisons, and all those various things. I just think that overall the gear system should be okay, and perhaps if they were a little bit too liberal with how much Valor they gave you, in combination with all the other ways you can get gear, you just level up, or not, you'd item level yourself up very quickly, you would remove a lot of that progression within a few weeks, and then you'd have nothing to shoot for. And sure, progression is enough to shoot for a lot of people, but there are other people who are going to be less interested if they don't have a gear incentive, so Blizzard do need to make sure that they don't just propel people through the item levels extremely quickly. Basically, we need to wait and see. There isn't enough information right now, and a knee-jerk reaction will not do anyone any good. So don't have a knee-jerk reaction. Logical debate, it's the best. Alright, so the next piece of news is also very important. Well, sort of. It's about the level 90 boost, and more specifically, the pricing. So Blizzard recently talked to Eurogamer about the level 90 boost, and basically they said that the boost is being sold to allow people who would have purchased multiple copies of WoW to get more level 90 characters a more accessible way of getting what they want. And I guess it's hard to refute that. Yeah, well, it is hard to refute that, but by sort of institutionalizing the system, they're probably going to make it a little bit more prolific than the people who would buy multiple copies of WoW. But, yeah, whatever. So, that's the first thing they said. Then they said that they went for the $60 price point to ensure that they did not devalue the leveling process, and that if they wanted to make maximum profits, they would have set a lower price. And I'm gonna say here, that makes sense. If these were $30, I think you would have more than twice the amount of people buying them. Really, because how many people are going to pay 60? Well, only the people who are either like ultra... Actually, no, I don't think the ultra hardcore WoW people will do it. It's the people who have got a pretty good job, lots of disposable income, etc. They're the people who are cool with dropping $60 in a new character. And if they were to drop that down to 30, well, I think it would be a far more palatable option for many more people. But it would also greatly devalue the leveling process. So personally, I would take 60 over 30. Because, yeah, I just think it's better. Now, I know a lot of people have been very excited at the fact, oh yeah, I can get a new character, it's going to cost $30, whatever, nice and easy. I think that there's maybe been a bit of an odd expectation with the way that this level 90 boost was announced and marketed. I think that by talking about it so early, and talking about it being a store thing so early, they allowed players to start discussing pricing on their own and come to a consensus of about $40, which means that a lot of people just think, oh, $40, great. But in Blizzard's eyes, making it $40 is cutting out a core piece of their game because it makes leveling just too pointless. They still want leveling to be a part of the game, therefore the sort of ring road around leveling has got to have a pretty hefty toll fee. I guess that's their logic. I'm not going to weigh too much into it in terms of my personal opinions, but I do think that a $60 price is better than $30 in terms of what it will do to the overall game. Okay, so next we have an interview from Players Cut, and, well, just little tidbits, I suppose. They said that they are planning currently for the next 2 expansions of World of Warcraft. That makes sense. Usually they work 2 expansions ahead, and 2 has been the number that we heard about right after MOP released, right after Cataclysm, Wrath, etc. 2 is just generally the number that they work on. So right now they probably know what the next expansion is, and they are probably brainstorming the expansion after that. Maybe the artwork for the next expansion is being worked on by the concept artist team. If you think about it, those concept artists have really... well, they've probably sketched out all the Draenor stuff a good few months ago. 6, maybe 10 months ago. So, maybe even more. So, I think it completely makes sense that they will move on to the next expansion. Okay, so then they said that removing arena teams was vital for increasing arena participation, and we heard from Holinka directly via Twitter that he was amazed at how high the increase in 3 versus 3 participation was. I think this is good, it makes sense, and I suppose it is a little bit sad that there's that loss of being in a team, but maybe they'll find a way of implementing that again. Yeah, I think they could. Maybe if you're doing an arena with the same 3 people, you can set up a team, and really it's not a game system thing, it's just a cosmetic thing, but I think it would be kind of nice. Okay, so he said, well, they said also, that there are going to be a lot of content with garrisons that are related to having followers. So currently we know that you can send them off in missions, like a quest, a raid, a dungeon, something like that. But what we don't know is exactly what some of these systems will entail, and if there are indeed any other systems. Perhaps there are quests you can go on with your followers, maybe the followers have got some new AI. Blizzard have been talking about the new follower AI, so perhaps they can accompany you on this really cool mission or something and their AI can help you out. Maybe they have a tank character and a heal character and you can do your DPS or whatever. I think that could be really interesting, actually. Then they also said that more content will be added to the Garrisons feature as the patches go on, which totally makes sense, and that there are currently no player versus player Garrison features planned at the minute, but they do see how players would find it to be quite cool. I agree, I think it would be really freaking awesome if you could find some sort of way to siege your friend, but I guess just putting that into a decent in-game system is going to be a little bit tricky. Still though, it's not a reason not to pursue that option, so maybe we will see some sort of cool Garrison PvP in a future patch. Then, about Ashran, they said that it is so large that the higher player number, the actual zone itself, that is so large that the higher number of players shouldn't really hurt your performance too much. It has a fortress for each faction and then capture points which are spread out around the zone, so likely there is going to be a large central battle and then some smaller skirmishes on the outskirts around some of those smaller objectives. And I think that sounds pretty damn cool. I like the idea of it being a large battle and then multiple small battles and then them all kind of coalescing into the one event of Ashran. I think that works out very well. It's better than it just being one giant clusterfuck. And what I really like is that this should hopefully, in theory, remove one of the problems I had with Guild Wars 2 World vs. World, in that it just turned into a few Zergs running around the map. So if they balance these objectives right, that shouldn't happen. Then they also said there are no current plans for mobile WoW content, so if you have been pining for a mobile pet battle app, well, you're probably not going to get that. Then next, and finally, they said that the Pandaren were a test for better quality animation rigs, and since that test worked out really well, they decided that it was a great time to update all the models. And they are currently aware that some of the older armor does look a little bit jarring in comparison to the newer models, but it isn't really possible to update all of them in terms of just how much time it would take. What they can do is use the old armor models as an inspiration for future sets. I'd actually be kind of cool with the idea of them making an updated version of an old set and then it being a transmog thing. Maybe they could tie that in with a scaled up raid or something. Like, scaled up old world raid, maybe something like that. I'm not particularly sure. Anyway, so finally, we just have one or two little things to say about PvP Season 15. It has begun. You can now do your RBGs and your arenas to get your points and stuff, and really it's the same as always. Though, one thing that's probably worth saying is that they've actually changed the Karasang Wild's rares so that they can only be killed once per day for loot. So what I recommend doing if you want to grind up your honor and get into the season early by buying all the old Season 14 gear, then you just want to do Wintergrasp, Tolbrad, and then the patch 5.2 PvP dailies. And then, of course, the odd battleground. But anyway, that is it for today's Warcraft Daily. I've got to say, lots of interesting stuff to talk about. And, yeah, things are shaping up quite nicely. So if you want to support the channel, you can check out my Patreon page. Stuff's been heating up there and it's quite fun. Then also my social media links like the Twitter and all that stuff, because I actually do really enjoy talking to you guys on Twitter. And, yeah, that's it for today's show. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.